This one. Caught red-handed. Streamer fakes a blindfolded speedrun.
It's like, if you want to see a real investigation, claim that you
loud.
did something in a video game that didn't actually happen, and you're going to get people that put more work into that than their entire time at college.
Cheating a blindfolded run is one thing, but increasing the proof standard so you can perform the run again, only to double down and cheat a second time, is one of the most insane things I've ever seen. With increased proof standards, you'd think that faking another run would be difficult, but the method used was so obvious, you'll wonder how Queen Pwnzalot thought she could pull it off without getting caught. Today I'll show you how the investigation into her second run progressed and what our initial theories were before we arrived at the truth. So let's start with how we got here. Asmongold would watch Queen's first run on stream and was quite impressed with it, as he was currently stuck on Alatreon himself. I don't blame Asmongold for being fooled by this, since he doesn't have experience with blindfolded runs, but looking at her Discord, it was planned to get the video in front of him. Wanting the attention of a big streamer is a double-edged sword, because while it does amplify your viewership, it also gets you in front of experts such as Juicy.
Ooh, who's Juicy?
He uploaded a video of his own, pointing out all of the inconsistencies with her run. Asmongold would watch this as well, and suggested that if Queen could do this again, it would clear up everything. Not one to shy away from Asmongold's attention, she created a video announcing February 14th as the date her next run would be performed. But this time, she would obey stricter proof standards. Covers over 2 of her monitors, a hand cam, input display, and a community-approved blindfold would be the measures she implemented to help prove her legitimacy. This time, she was leaving no room for doubt, and even double-checked her chat to make sure she wasn't missing anything. In the lead-up to this, a legitimate blindfolded run of Alatreon was performed by Kaye, and the huge difference you'll notice is the strats he used. In addition
Literally facing away. I mean, you can't criticize this blindfolded run, can you? I'm not even looking at the monitors.
Using lock-on targeting instead of free cam, he chose to use the dual blades
I didn't even
instead of a
look at the
weapon like
screen to kill the
greatsword
boss.
that relies on headshots. For Queen's second run, I fully expected the strategy she used to be actual blindfolded strats, so she could claim that she could actually do a blindfolded run, but that's not what happened. In fact, what happened baffled me. Her first few attempts did not go well, and while watching, I got the feeling we weren't going to see a repeat kill and the story was going to end here. But on her 8th try, she survived through an Echelon judgment and proceeded to kill the boss. My first impression was that the run had to be legit given the proof standards, but once I had the chance to analyze it, I began to realize that it had a ton of problems. In the last video, we established that vertical camera movement with the mouse is never performed while blindfolded because you have no audio cues or other form of feedback to help you get it recentered. This was
Because you wouldn't know, like if you're blindfolded, you wouldn't know like where the camera is to then adjust it. But also, so this is Monster Hunter. I've never played Monster Hunter before, but Alatreon, is this a really difficult, like notoriously difficult boss in Monster Hunter? Like, is this a proper like feat of achievement? It is hard. Okay, so as somebody who's not played Monster Hunter, this is a notoriously hard fight is what I'm gathering. So to do a notoriously hard fight is already difficult, but then also to do it blindfolded, to me, having never really played any of these games, blindfolding and playing is always going to be really impressive to me. I guess maybe it's an element of like sound cues and stuff like that, but stuff like this will always really impress me. Because I just wouldn't even know how it's possible. I don't know how you'd even do this, but anyway. Wait, she's killed it 4,193 times? I mean, who am I to judge? I'm a World of Warcraft player. I've killed bosses probably that amount of times over and over again. So...
a key piece of evidence in her first run that something was amiss, and in this run, we see 2 things. The first is that she's using the Alt button to recenter the camera periodically, as it will have the camera go back to a neutral position. This behavior was entirely absent from the first run, however, and the head tracking was once again present and obvious. It's safe to say that blindfolded runs of Monster Hunter are tough, and if you're thinking about attempting one, maybe you should try this video's sponsor, Unicorn Overlord, instead. From the studio that brought you 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim and published by the group behind Persona, Unicorn Overlord is a brand new take on the tactical fantasy RPG.
I love how creative these like top creators are with their sponsors.
Overlord allows you to explore a vibrant world while amassing
I mean, it looks pretty. It looks
60
cute.
unique characters. This gives you deep options when building your army, as there are various synergies for offense and defense
It does look
between
pretty.
the different classes. abilities. The rapport system allows you to deepen the bonds between characters, letting them give each other stat increases and narrative progression moments as rapport builds. The main way of increasing rapport is by having units battle together, but it can also be gained by bestowing special gifts and holding feasts. If you're like me and love the tactical RPGs of the 90s, you'll enjoy the classic 32-bit battle
It's so
system
funny
with
because I
modern
came
2D
home
aesthetic
yesterday from the
graphics,
Final Fantasy
complete
VII
with over
launch
40
party,
hours of gameplay.
and I was
Unicorn
like taking my
Overlord
makeup
releases
off, and I
March
put
8th,
this
but the
I
demo
put this
is live
YouTube
right
video
now,
on,
and all of your
and as it
progress
was
carries
playing,
over to
I
the
just was
full game.
immediately
So
hooked.
use my
I found
link
it really
and start building
interesting.
your
After
army right now.
ignoring
And with that, let's get back to the investigation. In this clip,
After ignoring all of the thumbnails, I've been seeing this story for like weeks or a week. I've been seeing this everywhere and I just haven't looked into it whatsoever. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put it on in the background while I take my makeup off. And so I was like, okay, this is way too interesting. I'm going to wait and we can watch it tomorrow.
see that not only does she track the dragon's head in the vertical, but she also keeps the head centered on screen as she moves under the boss, which isn't possible as there's no audio feedback for camera adjustments. In another clip, she goes from the front of the dragon to the side and rotates the camera perfectly to keep the head centered in the screen.
So how would
This
she
isn't
do this
behavior
if it's
that's possible
blind?
while
If she's
And if we
blindfolded?
dive deeper, we see more of the same old tricks. The attack where the boss swipes doesn't have an audio cue until it's already traveling towards you, but this doesn't stop her from dodging before the cue plays. Not only this, but the attack comes from the opposite direction based on where you're standing relative to Alatreon, and the dodge needs to be performed towards it or you'll be hit. But
So
somehow
stuff like that has no explanation whatsoever. Like, how are you knowing that that ability is coming in without the sound cue? Because you can't see it. So how are you dodging it? How are you dealing with it? I mean, unless somebody is counting the seconds of an encounter and it's like Final Fantasy 14, where it's the same every time and everything's on a timer, but I don't know. I don't think that would be possible. Like, to count in your head. I mean, maybe if you were blindfolded, you'd have to rely on strats like that. But again, I'm not a blindfold speedrunner, so...
Queen not only manages to dodge before the audio cue, she also gets the direction right every single time. Even
Well,
with
okay,
3D
that's
audio,
sus. The
doing this correctly
direction.
with a 100% success rate shouldn't be possible, but there's another action she takes that has no audio cues, and that's how she interacts with the ledge. There are small ledges all throughout the arena, and they have a unique interaction when you roll into an attack. If you roll on a flat surface and press attack, it won't cue to start the attack when the roll is completed. This means you need to finish a roll before the game will register an attack input, but ledges break this mechanic. If you roll off a ledge, your roll gets cancelled and you can attack right away, but there aren't any audio cues you're on a ledge, as it's a completely silent piece of geometry. Despite this, she rolls off a ledge and attacks immediately, which doesn't make sense as an experienced player would know not to press attack this fast after a roll, but if she can see she's on a ledge, this makes perfect sense. Here's a comparison between a dodge roll into attack where she's on flat ground. You can see
This
how much
is really
delay
good
there
a
is
comparison.
in a normal roll attack, but in the attack off the ledge, the delay is only 8 frames, almost double the time to cue a normal attack compared to a ledge cancel. Given that the same gameplay oddities were observed again, we were sure that something was going on, but they weren't the only things that stood out.
See, with that one, what I was going to say was, because she can't see, maybe she just doesn't know how long it's been since she rolled. You know what I mean? If you can't see that your character has finished rolling, she could have just queued an attack too early. That's like my initial thoughts, knowing nothing about Monster Hunter. But the comparison is really good because you can see how she acts when she's on the flat ground and how she cues an action like double the time as compared to the ledge thing. So I'm glad he put the comparison side by side. Otherwise, I would have been like, well, she can't see, you know, maybe she just doesn't know if she's finished the roll.
Different times, she lost complete control of her character and would press Windows and Escape. They aren't on the input tracker, but it's quite obvious when she does, as her thumb moves for the Windows key and her entire hand moves for Escape. I had no clue why these two keys needed to be
That's
pressed
weird.
or why she was losing control of the character, but something was pulling her focus from the game. After she kills the boss is when I proof called her on the original Blindfold to have it unfolded and light checked again. As I pointed out in my previous video, I knew it was transparent, and in this run, it had been folded additional times so that it would pass the light check, but all this proof call earned me was a timeout. On Carl's video, the mod that timed me out commented that I had asked the question 20 times, and for the record, I asked twice and replied to mod comments about the proof call 5 times. A total of 7 chats over 5.5 minutes, but his second comment is worth some scrutiny. Somebody asks if he's saying that the blindfold doesn't unfold, and he triples down by saying that it doesn't. If that's the case, then why not say that on stream instead of saying that the material isn't transparent and refusing the proof call? This even contradicts the mod's own statements in the stream because they said the blindfold was folded in the original run, but it being folded implies it can be unfolded, so which is it? I think that's all the analysis we need of the first blindfold, since we know it was transparent and had obviously been tampered with when the check was performed in the second stream, and I think—
Okay, so her first run, which is what she got called out for the first time, how she did it was that her blindfold was transparent. That was her first run. That's what I'm gathering. And then she does it again. So this is her second attempt where she also cheated.
I think we can all agree that this idea to triple down on it is insane. Given that the run had many of the same issues as the first and had new problems to look into, I knew that this investigation would require a team as competent as Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, so I called in a friend.
I
Carl
love
and
the
tackled
investigation.
along with some Monster Hunter and Blindfold speedrun
I love this
experts.
so
When
much.
we began, we asked ourselves if it could be legit, and decided that given the head tracking and dodging attacks before the sound cues, that it most certainly wasn't. Which left the question, how was it done? A common theory I saw commented was that she was playing over a pre-recorded video. This has been done before, as Lee SDA did this with a Yoshi's Island run, and Mechar did this at GDQ of all places with a Metal Gear Rising run. But this isn't a good method of cheating, and we could rule it out instantly. Since she was using an input display and hand cam, we could see that the inputs observed matched what was happening on screen.
Oh, yeah,
so
you wouldn't be
playing
able
over
to
a pre-recorded
perfectly
run
replicate.
was easily ruled out. Another theory we thought might be possible was that someone else was playing off screen, but we crossed this out for the same reasons. The observed inputs matched the gameplay, so an off-screen player wasn't how this was done either. With two easy-to-perform methods of cheating out the window, we started thinking up more complex and esoteric explanations. Carl suggested that she could be using an aimbot or aim assist, and I thought that someone else might be playing through remote assistant. The reason we thought this was because of the head tracking and vertical camera movement, which we know is impossible while blindfolded, so we started testing these theories. For aimbot, there wasn't anything we could do at the moment, so Carl got in touch with a modder for Monster Hunter that had created one. The way it works is by hooking into the game's memory. From there, you can tell it what object you want it to look at. In this case, it's the different bones that make up the dragon's rig. It's turned on and off from the press of a button, so you can activate it as needed to quickly line up a shot, then turn it off
Wouldn't you be
before
able to
anyone suspects
see?
anything. But it's quite obvious if you turn it on
Yeah.
from a greater distance,
The
as
snap.
it completely overrides your inputs and makes a beeline for whatever it's targeting. Another reason aimbot was suggested was because at certain times when her mouse was moving in one direction, we noticed that the input tracker would freak out and register inputs across multiple axes, and we had no way of explaining this other than an external force acting on the mouse. Aimbot was a good theory and would explain how she was able to track the head while blindfolded, but while Carl was investigating it, I was looking into Remote Assistant. Remote Assistance is a feature for Windows that allows someone else to control your PC at the same time as you, giving them access to your mouse and keyboard. I thought this was a plausible theory because it would
Ooh, this
explain the
could
head
be-
tracking and glitchy mouse inputs, as I theorized the person using it would only try to move
Are we
the
onto a
camera
winner here,
while
do you
she was
think?
moving it. So what happened when we tested it? It wasn't a perfect test due to an ocean being between me and Juicy, but even with the giant amount of lag, we found that the input tracker perfectly tracked everything I tried to do, but it also had an additional problem. The second I made an adjustment, Juicy lost all ability to play the game competently. It was a constant battle for control that didn't end well, and doing it blindfolded would have made it impossible. Remote Assist and Aimbot are technical explanations, and part of the reason we decided to go down this route was because of the Windows and Escape key presses. Multiple times in the attempt, she lost control of her character and remained stationary despite the tracker
That's
registering
weird.
inputs, with control only being restored after pressing Windows and Escape. We theorized this was due to software she was using to help track the head, either Aimbot pulling her out of the game or the person on Remote Assistance doing something that caused the game to lose focus.
See, the remote assist is a really, really interesting suggestion because it could be that. Because the input, but then I was thinking, well, how would she know what to press that's going to mimic what the other person is going to press? That's going to be something that's like really noticeable, unless the input is registering the other person's presses. But then because her mouse and keyboard is on show, you would be able to easily see if she didn't make the movement that was matching the other person. So yeah, I don't know. These two, it'd be way too easy to disprove it, I think, right?
It turns out, this was only a red herring. If you look earlier in the stream, she pressed Windows to fix her eye tracker, and during the run, the eye tracker was also the reason she had to press Windows and escape. That's right, a random tech issue put us down a rabbit hole and threw us off the trail. We knew for certain that it wasn't remote assistance at this point, which left aimbot as the best theory since it explained the head tracking and glitchy mouse inputs on the tracker. But one thing we learned about the input display by using it ourselves is that it doesn't work well with Monster Hunter, and the glitchy inputs happen when you use it normally with the game. This left us at sea without a rudder.
I don't know, I'm sus of those key presses.
But while on a call with some Monster Hunter experts, they kept repeating to me that everything they saw made sense if she could see. Aimbot explained the head tracking, but not the dodges or the ledge attack, and the players kept reiterating.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. That's why you got to like put it down to what exactly is happening. Like, okay, aimbot would explain this, but also how does she know to predict an ability with no sound cue and also move in the perfect direction 100% of the time? Only being able to see would explain that, right?
Aimbot explained the head tracking, but not the dodges or the ledge attack, and the players kept reiterating that she must be able to see, so I wrote the theory out.
How would she be able to see?
Blindfold speedrun expert Bubzia replied that it's easy to see out the bottom of a blindfold and to do so undetected. He even created a video demonstrating how much of a field of view he had if he wore the blindfold so that the bottom had a small gap.
Wait,
and
that's
he could even see part of the monitor on his desk, so having a screen off camera that you can see is entirely possible. While exploring this theory, one thing I noticed was this instance where she looked at her keyboard before pressing the escape button. If she could see out the bottom, this made complete sense, as your field of view would be smaller, so you'd need to do pronounced head movements to see anything you were looking at. Another thing Bubzia mentioned was that it's a giveaway someone can see out the bottom of the blindfold if they are sitting with their head held high. So I compared her posture from the first run to this one, and it's a very pronounced change. In the last video, her head is angled down at the monitor the game is playing on, which we know she can see since the blindfold is transparent. But in this video, her head is angled up very high, a huge difference in posture.
Wait, that is a big difference. Her head is tilted up so much.
Carl the Absolute Legend would find the evidence we needed, so I went to bed.
She is.
Huge difference in
no, that is a big difference.
Video, her head is angled up very high.
But what would she?
Difference in posture. It was past midnight.
But
when
what can she see though?
Dots, so I went to bed. But while I was asleep,
her monitors are
Carl the
covered.
Legend would find the evidence we needed because there was a third monitor, and we can prove it. How do you prove the existence of something you can't see? Thankfully, we have two major pieces of evidence that prove without a doubt there's another monitor off screen. In this clip,
oh my god, the scandal!
She decides there's something super important she has to do. If you look at the input display, she left clicks for almost 10 seconds. We had no idea what she was doing when we first watched this, but Carl figured it out. The only reason you'd perform a long click is if you're grabbing a window to drag it, and if you look at her mouse hand, you see that it doesn't move to the left where the other monitor is. It moves to the right, indicating another monitor off screen.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. I love this stuff. I absolutely love this stuff. That it's like, hang on a minute. She held the left button down for 10 seconds. I just love these things that people see and notice. Like, it is just so surreal. I love this stuff. Like, she holds it down. And the only reason you could do that is by dragging. And they notice that she drags it right, not left. I'm like, oh, it is like CSI.
What is she dragging? If you go back a bit earlier, you see that she has OBS on the gameplay monitor and it has a chat window docked to the right side of it. And since the left monitor is covered, the OBS window is the only spot she can read chat from. The next time we see the middle monitor after the long left click, the OBS window is gone, meaning OBS with chat is what she dragged to the right. If you're going to be doing a blindfolded attempt, there's no reason that you'd need to read chat from a hidden monitor, as it would be a major giveaway if you ever got caught. The only reason you do this is because you want to see what people are saying, and there's no way she'd make the mistake of reading chat with her monitors covered, right?
Oh yeah. Everything
No.
unedited.
With both monitors covered and while looking to the right, she responds to a message in chat, and after this, she pretends to have read it from the left monitor where the pop-out chat was located in an attempt to cover. You can tell she knows she made a mistake as well, since she starts answering the question she read off the right monitor, then stops and lets out a giant sigh.
Ooh.
She then makes a point of going to the left monitor and reading the message out loud, but we now know the message was read from an off-screen monitor. If this isn't convincing enough, look at what happens after the kill. Even with the covers removed, she looks to the hidden right monitor when she gets a gift sub alert. It's like she's forgot she just faked a run and doesn't even try to hide the fact that there's a monitor off screen. She gets a raid at one point and acknowledges it while looking at the right screen that doesn't exist, before replying to more messages from the monitor that clearly isn't there. In the chat, a viewer even points out her posture, and a mod immediately covers for her by saying they do posture checks all the time. This might be true, but then why is this the only video where she's
got a
sitting
weird
straight up
angle
with
of her head
cranked
and
in the air?
posture.
She goes on to claim that both runs are real, and that since Asmongold wanted another run, that's what he gets.
But Asmongold wanted another run. He said, I hope she comes back, I hope she does it again, and says that I did do it the first time, now here's me doing it again. And that's exactly what we did.
And it's hard to believe that this anime arc all started from a clout chase for someone else's attention. To recap the evidence, while blindfolded, it's very easy to see out the bottom, and keeping your head tilted up would let you play off of a hidden monitor. In this attempt, she is angled to the right where the hidden monitor is, and holds her head incredibly high compared to the last one, where her head is angled down
that is a weird angle, isn't it?
There is a hidden screen to the right, which can be verified as she moves OBS to this monitor, which is confirmed by the input viewer and hand cam, and even reach chat from it while looking right with both monitors covered, as well as reading from it after the run itself. This makes for an open and shut case, as it's obvious a third monitor is involved, and that's what she's playing off of, as it explains the head tracking and dodging perfectly. But the story doesn't end here. She uploaded a video of the second run and responds to some of the claims Juicy made in his analysis video that started this entire arc, and one of the first things she disputes is how she dodged without audio cues. She only mentions the double head swipe, however, which does have an audio cue where Alatreon taps his feet before doing the attack. This wasn't mentioned in my video, however, as I focused on the claw swipes, and she conveniently left out how she dodged that attack before the audio cue. And what she says next is incredible.
Then, because it's silent, I don't see it charging up, and even as a master of this hunt, I still get hit by it. Or is it that I'm just acting?
I think we know the answer to that now, but to address the point, it wouldn't make sense to dodge everything in a fake blindfolded run. Otherwise, people with no knowledge of how they work, like Asmongold, might have picked up on it right away. She even addresses the vertical camera movement.
Another main criticism of my blindfolded run is the fact that I adjust my camera to fight the monster without using lock-on. This is just how I fight it. All the time. Every time. Just because I put a blindfold on doesn't mean that that changes.
What's funny about this is she offers no explanation as to how she knows exactly how much to adjust the camera in the vertical. So I guess we'll just have to settle for the trust me bro. It's hard to believe that this was all started from someone trying to get a streamer's attention. And Asmongold, if you're watching, I did put more effort into this video than I did at college. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next exciting episode of Abyssoft Z.
Damn, the hidden third monitor. Oh, I see. This is the thing. I haven't really ever seen blindfolded runs or anything, so I wouldn't even know where to start, like trying to debunk it. But I love the investigative part of it. I just find it really interesting. That was a really good video. I was like, when I put it on for like 30 seconds yesterday, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna save this because I'm invested now. Because, you know, when I was saying, oh, you know, she faked a blindfolded run, I wasn't really that interested because it's like, oh, whatever. But I don't know. The steps that people take to investigate and prove it, I think was really interesting. Also, I saw someone's message of like, thanks to her, people will trust women's achievements less. I just want to make a statement. This has nothing to do with women. I think it will make people more skeptical of blind runs because it doesn't come down to gender. It comes down to the fact that she is doing a blindfold run. So I think it only makes people a little bit more skeptical for blindfolded runs. I don't think this has anything to do with her being a woman. I don't know why we need to bring gender into it, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. But she's clearly a good player, right? Like, how many times had she killed the boss already?
A rabbit hole.
It was 4,611. Clearly, she is a really experienced player and really, really good at the game. So I think there's definitely something to be said for maybe you should actually have tried to do it legitimately. Like, what stops you taking the time to, like, learn or eventually do a blind playthrough. Like, why cheat? It's so sad because she's clearly good. You know what I mean? But yeah, I definitely think this makes people more skeptical for blindfolded runs because that's all this is representing, a blindfolded run. Like, I don't think this needs to make you more suspect of people with brown hair or red lipstick. You definitely shouldn't be sus of people like that. But like, you know, that sort of stuff, her gender, like that just doesn't come into it. It's a blindfolded run. So I can understand increases skepticism for blindfolded run. That's all that's relevant in my opinion. She's clearly a very skilled player. I think if she put the time in, I think she could have done it legitimately. She didn't need to cheat. But then that doesn't get headlines, does it? Because you also don't know, like, maybe she always knew she was going to cheat, so she's testing. Like, the real test isn't about the blindfold run. The real test is like, let's see if I can successfully cheat, or like maybe she's fighting the people that go into investigating like this, which is also an interesting concept, right? But I found it really interesting. And I love the amount of time that people put into like examining every single key press. And it's like, she held down the left button for 10 seconds. You would only do that if you're dragging a window. And she moves it right. And it's like, I just love all of those little bits. When I was scrolling the YouTube comments, because I kind of press pause and sometimes I scroll the YouTube comments, there was one YouTube comment. I don't know if I'm about to find it now because I scrolled for a while, kind of reading stuff. It was a YouTube comment that was kind of saying, trying to remember and summarize it. They basically said that she held her phone up in the VOD. She deleted the VOD, but apparently she held her phone up to show a picture and you can see the third monitor in the reflection of her phone. And it's like, it's so amazing to me that people notice stuff like that. It's just so cool.